All right, this is a special meeting jointly between the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners and the Flagler County Tourist Development Council. This is Monday, February 20th, 2017, 1 p.m. We are in the Emergency Operations Center. Would you all stand and join me in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you all please join me in a brief moment of silence? Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Welcome, board members, and a special welcome to our Tourist Development Council. This is a workshop. We tend to be a little the special meeting, not a workshop. Okay, so we're not going to be laxed. If you have a question, you'll address the chair. What we're going to try to do here, anyways, welcome to you all. It's good to see you. I don't get to look at you this way. Usually you're off to one side or the other, so you look a little better than I remember. So that's good. And of course, these guys are always off to the side of me here, so I know them by, if they're sitting on the left or the right, I know from that side of their face. No, this is good. We're going to have a presentation here. What we're going to try to do is let staff get through their presentation. So if you have a question, if you want to write it down so that you don't forget it, we'll be a little more formal about this, and we'll go from there. When you do speak, especially the tourism folks, when you speak, if you'd state your name, because I don't think that they're accustomed to your voices. Some voices they are, some they aren't, but just state your name when you speak, when you're called on, and we'll get your questions and all your comments and everything in on that. So I think I've covered everything. You good? Okay. Mr. Coffey, Mr. Dunn, it's all yours.
Okay, I do want to say thank you all for being here. I'm excited to have both the commission and the council together. It's very rare that we do this, so I'm excited for this to happen. And I wanted to start off by discussing a little bit about our history over the past 3 years. Yes, and my name is Matt Dunn, Palm Coast and the Flagler Beaches. We are the operating arm of the Flagler County Tourist Development Council. So yes, wanted to dive into the last 3 years or so since we truly made a significant direction change to our operation. So we added a very proactive sales effort in January of 2014. We added a considerable event planning aspect to our operation. We put more of a campaign feel on our advertising and our overall media plan. We added continuing education, as that's something that's very important to me, and that we make sure that our staff stays top of mind on a lot of current issues within the industry, among several other additions. And one thing that I'm also very proud about is how we've been able to make sure that the team is involved in a lot of volunteer efforts. So not only on a national scale, a southeastern regional scale, a state scale, but also a local scale as well. And so every member of our team is volunteering. Certainly you're not a leader if you're sitting on the bench, and I want to make sure that every member of our team is operating in a leadership role. So very, very proud about that. We have, if we can switch to the first slide after our title slide here, we have, there we go, sorry about that.
You're actually in control of it yourself.
I know,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. We have actually received our numbers for 2015. I'll be very honest with you that they're pretty large, and we're still going through them. We're still researching them to understand them a little bit better. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about our numbers that are from the 2014-15 fiscal year. First off, there is one number that we do feel very comfortable in talking about, and that's the Flagler County's employment number. Tourism makes up 24% of our destination's employment. That's the statistic that we've received from the first quarter of 2016, and that's up 3% from 21%. So pleased to see that that's growing the right way. And you can certainly see 30% of all local and state Taxes collected in Flagler County are due to visitor spending, as well as roughly 30% of all gross sales in Flagler County are due to visitor spending. We're not aware of another industry that can claim numbers that high. I've also discussed with all of you this direct visitor spending number, just over 192 million in that same time frame. And it's my style really to stop there. I don't really like to get into economic impact too much. That can be a controversial topic within our industry across the country, but we do get pressed to give an economic impact number. And we have an industry-accepted standard of a 20% multiplier. So if we were to calculate that, it would end up being 230 million in economic impact for the 14-15 fiscal year. And we certainly have shown that there's a correlation between increasing our budget has also increased the tourist development tax collections. And every single year over the past 3 years, we have had a record-breaking collection. And then the big number down at the bottom is the 25% increase in the collections over the past 3 years. It's specifically 24.6%. I've rounded up there. But as we've all discussed time and time again, I'm not sure of anyone that wouldn't be pleased with a 25% increase in revenue over the same 3-year span. So I've also just we're happy about that. So we're here today to discuss what has been mentioned in the last 2 TDC meetings. One, of course, is to look at raising the tax from 4% to 5%. Second, we've specifically talked about doubling the Beach Restoration Fund, Fund 111. And third, assigning a penny, one penny of the tourist development tax specifically to Fund 111. So let's dive into that. Here before you, this map of Florida, you can see the current tourist development tax percent, the number of pennies per county. You can see there are some zeros on the board there. There are some rural counties that do not collect any tourist development tax. But more specifically, what I'd like you to look at is when you look in the, I'll use my pointer here. When you look at the Pensacola, Panama City, down into Destin and Fort Walton, get over here into Tampa and St. Pete Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, Fort Myers, Naples, all the way down, and then of course up and down the eastern coastline of Florida there, you'll see that the majority of counties are maxed out. They are at their highest allowable percentage, and they've done that on purpose because they don't want to leave any money on the table. I think this number here of 21 of 36 coastal counties would be a more impressive ratio if you were to take out these counties that are here in the Gulf of Mexico that truly don't have any sizable beaches. They don't have any significant visitor attractions or visitor assets. So I think that ratio would be a little bit better, but nonetheless, it's still, I think, a pretty impressive number. So let's take a look at our history and where we've been. We started with the first 2 pennies in 1986. And initially we began collecting and basically depositing the funds into three separate funds that were established by the county. The first is Fund 109, Capital Projects, Fund 110, Promotions, and Fund 111, Beach Restoration. And we started with a breakdown of Fund 109 at 30%, Fund 110 at 55%, and Fund 111 at 15%. And then moving along, you can see that we levied the third penny in 2004, and we kept the same structure in terms of the deposits. And then in 2010, we levied the fourth penny, and we changed the percentage breakdown to where we're currently at a 4% tax with the breakdown of 22.5, 66.25, and 11.25. So let's talk about these pennies a little bit and what we can spend the money on by state statute, by state law. So the statute's very clear when it comes to the authorized uses of these proceeds. The first, second, and third penny, the authorized uses are all the same. You can see there at the very beginning, what is in blue that you see before you are items that we can do. And what you see before you in red are items that we cannot do for a variety of reasons. So first and foremost, purchase, build, renovate, operate, or promote a publicly owned facility, convention center, sports stadium, et cetera. That is the essence of our Fund 109 capital projects. And the key phrase there is publicly owned. So if you remember in our grant program, when it comes to the capital projects fund, we specifically only allow the county and the municipalities and now the school board to go after those funds because they have to be publicly owned facilities. The second item there, purchase, build, renovate, operate, or promote a publicly owned and operated aquarium or museum. Well, we don't have one of those on our radar screen right now. That's not the project that we are looking at all or pursuing. And number three, another item that we cannot do, promote a zoo. We don't have a zoo, so therefore we can't promote a zoo. That one's pretty simple. Number four in blue, something that is allowable, promote and advertise tourism in Florida nationally and internationally. You'll see this phrase in every single one of the authorized uses for each penny. And that was set up to be broad on purpose to allow local governments way back when to decide how they wanted to promote their own individual destination. And that really adheres, or I should say applies to Fund 110, our promotions fund. The fifth, fund destination marketing organizations. That's truly what our department is, a destination marketing organization. That's how we are referred to across the country. And then six, which really makes up Fund 111, our beach restoration fund. Allowable use there is beach improvement. So let's switch over to the fourth penny. This is known in the industry as the professional sports franchise facility tax. You can see those first three items there are not on our radar screen. We're not looking at this time of building a spring training facility or a professional sports franchise facility, nor are we looking at purchasing or building a convention center. And number three, of course, discusses the operation and maintenance costs of a convention center. So none of those top three items are on our radar screen. But number four, as I mentioned before, promote, advertise tourism in Florida nationally and internationally occurs in all of those. So for us at the current time, the fourth penny can only be spent on our Fund 110 promotions fund. The fifth penny is referred to in the biz as the high tourism impact tax, and we are not eligible to levy the fifth penny. Only the counties that you see before you, those five, Monroe, Orange, Osceola, Palm Beach, and the newest one, the latest one, Pinellas, which believes, I'm not totally positive about this, but I believe they just started in 2016, are eligible. So the code there is that the county has to have in excess of 600 million in total lodging sales, or the lodging sales have to be 18% of the county's total taxable sales in order to qualify for the fifth penny. So we are far off from reaching that standard. There actually are three other counties that are eligible, Broward, Lee, and Walton, but they have not levied the tax. And just to give you, when I was researching all of this, I just thought this was interesting. Broward County alone, by not levying this penny, is missing out on 13 million in revenue. 1% in Broward County equals 13 million. Lee County is missing out on over 8.5 million, and Walton County is missing out on over $4 million. Okay. And then, of course, the sixth penny, which, as you see, I've noted there, which would be our fifth for five total, one through 4 and 6 equaling 5. That was clear as mud, wasn't it? Sorry. So the first two items as well are not something that are not, either one of those are not on our radar screen. So we're not looking to go after a facility bond on a professional sports franchise facility. And the second one, really the only difference is the word acquisition. So in the second one, the second description there allows you to purchase an existing facility. And then number three, of course, promote, advertise tourism in Florida nationally and internationally. So the new penny can only be spent on promotion. So that's not a problem. All that means is that we have to rewrite our county ordinance and assign specific pennies to a specific purpose. And so we'll talk about that here in a moment. We've also provided you with, I'll hold up this document that you see in front of you. If you'll turn to page 245 in this document, this is the state's financial information handbook. And if we switch over to page 245, you will hurt your eyes, number one, but you'll see that it lists by county the total transient rental sales per year. And if you scroll all the way over to 15-16, you'll see that we've averaged about 50 million. And of course, that makes sense, right? If we're collecting 50 million and we're collecting a 4% tax, that equals $2 million. And as you know, we've collected about 2 million in our tourist development tax over the past couple of years. The numbers are a little bit different because the state's fiscal year starts July 1st, whereas our fiscal year starts October 1st. So the numbers are skewed a little bit, so keep that in mind, that they're not completely exact because they're pulling a different set of months. But if we then turn to page 248, you'll be able to see what the state feels that the estimated tax revenues at 1% are to Flagler County. So within that, from the left-hand side, the second column in, you'll see a number of 548,000 and change. And I've got that noted here on the bottom of the slide before you as well. So knowing that we've collected just over 2 million the last couple of years, that number is truly a little too high for us. I would not be comfortable in presenting that number to you when we're forecasting the future or when we are presenting a proposal in front of you. And that's why I really want to go through this exercise. So with that being a little bit too high, let's look at the previous year that's up on top there. So in the 2015-16 fiscal year, the state felt as though 515,000 was more our average amount per penny that we collect. So let's look at the last two fiscal years. In the 14-15 fiscal year, you'll see our funds 109 through 11. You'll see the current percentage that we are at. You'll see the deposits to the right for the total of 2,032,000 and change. So in the 14-15 fiscal year, 1 penny equaled 508,000 for our destination. And last year, same numbers there, the funds, the percentages, the deposits for a 3% increase of 2,089,000 and change. So 1 penny last year equaled 522,000. So if we were to average those two out, we would see a $515,000 average. So that falls in line with what the state felt that we would be collecting last year. And let's keep in mind, too, in our best year, which was last year, if you look here at the screen, I'll point it out to you here, we collected $235,000 in the Beach Restoration Fund. And as we've been discussing the past few months, we wanted to make sure that we were going to double the Beach Restoration Fund. So $235,000, of course, that would mean $470,000 would be our end goal in terms of raising the tax from 4% to 5%. But in an effort to be conservative moving forward, let's just use this number here at the bottom of 500,000, and also just for some simple math too. Let's just make it easy on ourselves. So here's our proposal. In year one, we want to take a look at backing off of the Capital Projects Fund. We started this fiscal year with $2.3 million in cash carry forward in the Capital Projects Fund. So we would put zero into, in the 17-18 fiscal year, we would put nothing into the Capital Projects Fund. We have a very healthy balance there, and with everything that we have identified that will be coming before us in an application from the municipalities, there's more than enough money to cover all of that. And of course, we're trying to make sure that we are being good stewards of the tax and also taking care of our coastline at the same time. So we also propose here in the first year that we would decrease the promotions fund from 66.25% down to 60%, assign pennies 3, 4, and 5 by statute to collect 1.5 million, and then assign 2 pennies or 40%, pennies 1 and 2, for a huge increase in the percentage, and front load this fund to $1 million. If we think about this, if we move to 5%, each penny is worth 20%. So it makes it easy on the math in terms of just assigning these 5 pennies out. But I also want to note, too, that we can start this as early as June 1st. So the numbers that I've provided for you here certainly would be reflective of October of 17 and beyond, but we can also get a jump start on this and begin this on June 1st. So we would be putting making more deposits into that beach fund as we move forward. In the second year, fiscal year 18-19, we would back off just a bit, put 10% into capital projects, or half of the second penny, for $250,000. Maintain the same level in promotions. If we're not working to bring the visitors here, then we're not going to collect in these other funds. So maintain that 60%, assigning pennies 3, 4, and 5 to the Fund 110 promotions, and then put 30% in beach restoration for still a significant increase, with the full first penny and the second half of the second penny at $750,000. So within the first 2 years, we're looking at, and my guess, if we were able to start as early as June 1st, we would put in excess of $1.8 million into the Beach Restoration Fund to assist our efforts in replenishing the coastline. And then, important to note, in year 3, we would switch to a 20-60-20 plan, assigning the second penny to Capital Projects Fund, assigning pennies 3, 4, and 5 to the Promotions Fund, and assigning 1 full penny, the first penny, to the Beach Restoration Fund. And you can see the totals off to the right there. So all of this, of course, in an effort to, again, to help restore our coastline. We've all agreed that the beaches are our #1 visitor asset, and we certainly have an immediate need to move forward here. As I've noted, we can begin this as early as June 1st. I'm pretty confident that we've done far more than what we had discussed in the past. Again, we've discussed that this proposal adheres to the authorized uses in the statute, accomplishes far more than the end game of doubling the fund, and we would be dedicating 1 entire penny to beach restoration moving forward. So with that, we'll open it up for discussion and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. We appreciate your time and your clarity here. I'm sure there's questions. Mayor Holland, you raised your hand first, so you can start us off.
Well, I want to first start by saying I appreciate this opportunity because, it's been a while since I've been back on this council, and now working with 3 new commissioners, I think it's important that we all understand the complexity of these dollars, but also how they overall benefit our economic health and our community. So with that, a couple of questions. On the T rates by county, my first question is, I know that there are other counties, because of specific legislation that was written solely for them, have the ability to add additional pennies, particularly Miami-Dade has a lot, Volusia County has a lot. Has there ever been a thought of looking at diversifying sort of how we look at those funds, not just putting it solely on the hotels, but the food and beverage, those kind of things? Has there ever been a thought of discussion on how, if we were to look at different legislation and adding Flagler County to that role?
We haven't at this time. I think that's something that we would definitely take a hard look at once we do max out our tax.
Because I know, like, these other communities, I mean, they have additional pennies that they have. I mean, Miami-Dade, Volusia County, so the 6 cents, I mean, they have additional that they tap into, so.
Yeah, that might be actually a different workshop that we'll need to explore that, because there's probably a lot more research we need to put into that before we go down that road and find out the process and what they did and how it works and everything.
It's interesting, because when I was researching this, it was clearly written for a particular community, for a particular reason.
Yeah, Volusia especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not that, I think we've all seen, Volusia County's issues with the convention center, so I'm not even, going in that direction, but we do have other opportunities that I really feel we can add value to with improving some infrastructure that we really need to address. So I bring that up as a topic of just information, but maybe some food for thought moving forward. And I agree 100% that we really need to address our beaches. So I'm going to go to a different slide, and then I have a couple questions, because we're here not only talking about our beaches, but the funds in its entirety. So I have some questions about the capital funds in particular. because I'm here as also Palm Coast representative. But so the 1 million for the beach restoration and then going forward from that point on, I'm trying to understand the dynamic of how these funds would be allocated. Is there a process? Is the county overseeing the entire beach restoration of all 19 miles of our beaches, or is Flagler Beach included in that? What does that look like?
The answer would be yes. We're proposing long-term to, after the construction or restoration of the dunes, to turn that over to Flagler Beach for their portion. There's about 6.25 miles that are within the city limits of Flagler Beach, maybe a smidge within Beverly Beach there, but so we have been working on trying to secure funds for them long-term for maintenance from DOT. And we're also, some of these funds, in fact, someone asked me the other day, are these funds going to go to Flagler Beach? Actually, quite a few of these will go to Flagler Beach depending on how things work out. We have a Army Corps project coming up, which also, we have some DOT money, we have some potentially Army Corps money. We're still struggling trying to get that funding. I mean, that's not a slam dunk by any means. In fact, I'd call it a long shot at some point. We are working on that, and if that falls through, we'll need more local funding in Flagler Beach to match up with some DEP funding or some other funding to kind of make all this work. And
Yeah,
that's
so
what
I was
we're-
with Representative Renner this morning talking about a lot of issues, but this one in particular.
Yeah.
That 50-50 match is something he really feels is going to be a requirement that he can't overcome.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. So realistically, and also, what I stated to him, he had mentioned sort of the lack of proactivity on our community's behalf from restoring these beaches. And I explained to him that for 10 years, we were with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we were told very specifically, we just have to keep going, move forward, we were
Right.
funding it.
Right.
And he recognized the fact that that is a very slow organization and entity that we will have to overcome. So this will be a long-term strategy and solution, but I wanted to understand the dynamic of realistically, how far will these dollars go in the interim of sort of the immediate need?
Well, we have, of course, we took most of the reserves that were in the beach fund now, and we're applying those. So our goal with this strategy is not only put the new money, in fact, year one will be more than the new money, and year two will be all of the new money, and then year three, it kind of goes back to some normal. We may actually need about $4 million more in match, depending on what is done up and down and what funding sources comes through or not. We still do not have a clear-cut idea of what we're getting with FEMA, which could help us stretch the $50-50 dollars that we've already addressed with. We still do not have a clear-cut pathway for the Army Corps. That is an equal thing. So we are going to make some decisions probably in the next 30 days about this issue, and we could easily wind up needing $4 million of match. So you may wind up taking this as an approach and then actually bonding or borrowing money against some of those future revenues coming in.
Because I think also, Jim Ulsimer stated today that he was in a meeting with Hammock, his residents in Hammock Beach, and that there was going to be discussions on an assessment, and they felt they needed $1 million, and that the county was going to come in and match those funds and then work with FEMA as well. So would that $1 million come out of this bucket?
No.
Okay.
The DEP money, it's been very flexible as 50-50. So in the Hammock Dunes area, for example, they're going to have to come up with the 50%. I'm not spending TDC dollars there.
Okay.
It's mainly in other areas where the dune has completely evaporated, and we're trying to match there. I've gone over this a little bit with our board, detail by detail, and it's still in motion a little bit, but in that particular area, it's going to go 50%. The 50% match is going to come from the private sector there for us to restore those dunes.
And then my last question is the capital fund. I know that we have 2.3 million sitting in that fund today. And my concern going into this, quite frankly, was that we didn't lose sight of our capital infrastructure needs, particularly in Palm Coast, because we have a lot of sports fields that provide a lot of added value to tourism and generate a lot of revenue for our hotel stays as well. So I didn't want to lose sight of that. And I am looking to ask this council and board at one point to revisit the policy for municipalities to apply for additional funds with a 50 match. And I do so because, you know, we're going through a strategic action plan right now in the city, and we've looked at our amenities as a way to generate further economic value, particularly our soccer fields. We know we've got a lot of soccer and lacrosse tournaments that come in monthly, and we're at capacity. And I think at one point, the beaches are obviously of tremendous value, but so are our recreational amenities. And I'd like consideration of that as well, that when we're talking about that, I mean, I know at one time 150,000 seemed like a lot, but today's dollars, they don't go very far. So we've been able to do a little bit here and there, but I'd really like that discussion to take place at one point, because I think there's some real value in that, especially with our municipalities and our partners. I think we've done a great job of collaboration and partnerships to really increase the usage of these facilities. And I'd hate to see us lose sight of future opportunities with monies that are just sitting in there. So I'd really like at one point the board to look at that and consider that as well.
And then on the capital funds note, we looked at that because the county has identified the need to build capital projects as well. And we've actually written that into the policy, I believe. But we do have adequate funding to fund the current policy of the 150,000 grants for some time, for the next 2 years anyways, till it starts rejuvenating back in there. But yeah, we too have some capital project plans for increasing tourism, but we thought, or we kind of looked at it like we just went through a hurricane, hasn't happened essentially over 100 years, and that's got to take priority over everything else, and then we'll start working back into that additional stuff. But we're with you. We think the same thing, that we got to build this infrastructure, because the infrastructure we're competing against out there, a lot of cities and a lot of counties have made substantial investments in that infrastructure, and really the competition's steep.
Well, I mean, and the city of Palm Coast, you know, we're able to take sales tax dollars when people buy local and help our local businesses, and then multiply them by adding a tremendous value. So when you're looking at expanding our fields, I mean, our Indian Trail Sports Complex, most of it was paid for by sales tax dollars. So anything we can do to further that discussion really does add a tremendous amount. So I just want to make that known, that I don't want to just discount any municipality from their needs, but I think we need to look at this long term. So we have the beaches, and we have amenities, and we have the pier, and Beverly Beach has walkovers, and, you know, Marineland has some great experiences. So we just need to really make sure we're doing what's right long term.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else on the tourist board? For the public, there will be a portion in a little bit for the public to add comments and ask questions also, so don't feel forgotten. We're going to get to you. Anyone else on the council?
Not right
now. No? Okay. All right. Commission, any? Yes, sir. Mr. O'Brien. Make sure your mic's on.
We there?
Yep.
Again, I apologize about not having exact numbers here, but can you please give me the current fund balances for each one of our funds? Just approximate.
Sure. Capital Projects Fund is in excess of 2.5.
Okay.
The Promotions Fund, we started the fiscal year cash carry forward with over 1.7 million. And with, started the fiscal year with over 1.7 million.
Thank you, LB.
Yeah, thanks, LB. LBB. And of course, we're collecting every single month and putting more into that. We do that on purpose. That's a conservative method of making sure that we are maintaining one fiscal year's funds
Right.
in cash carry forward in case of a rainy day, which we had one, didn't we? But I'll have to get that solid number for you.
Okay.
And the beach restoration fund, as you know, is right at about 1.5 million, and that has been pledged to potentially be used in matches moving forward.
And that could, if you look in our budget sheet, now the 1.5 million won't have changed, but the budget sheet will show monies being spent, like for promotions, advertising, money coming back in, and we'll have kind of a estimated ending balance based on the budget.
So statutorily, what are we required in terms of what's the minimum percentage that we can use for any one of these categories going forward? Like, for example, on capital projects, you're proposing 0 for the next fiscal year. Can you do the same thing for promotions? And what I'm getting at is, you've identified about an extra $1 million to go into the beach restoration fund for the first year, and then 750 and then 500. Are we prohibited from not funding the promotions fund for a year, working down the reserve, the balance that we have, and that adds another $1.5 million approximately to money that we can use for matching and beach restoration?
We could do that. The problem with doing that, or that'd be, number one, a deviation kind of from how the board's operated historically since the fund was created. But what that will do is eliminate your reserves to weather the storm during ups and downs and promotions. So we are at a very high spot in promotion, in our tourism collection tax. There will be years that we may not fare as well. Although we'd like to believe it's always going to keep going up. But so that fund balance helps with that. And that fund balance has also helped you acquire different assets and stuff like that. But I'm not sure there's a prohibition from doing that and shifting, other than 3 cents, I believe, or 2 cents has to be used for promotions and advertising, correct? The last 4th and 5th cent, if you were past this. And we were trying not to disrupt the whole process. We were just trying to take the new money and figure out a way to strategically massage that in.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to learn because, again, I'm looking for every penny here.
Yeah.
Every dollar. I don't want to confuse the penny point, but every dollar, because we're up against it. We're in a tough situation, and it's not an everyday situation. So you have to pull out all the stops in my mind. So.
And we can come back and revisit these percentages and implement. I would suggest spending the reserves like that would be more of a last resort if everything, a lot of the other stuff falls through. And we could always come back and revisit that and adjust those percentages like that, or adjust that for a year.
And I would echo Mayor Holland's point about, that we heard from Representative Renner today. That, his read was that there's going to be a hard 50-50 match on any money that the legislature allocates this coming session. So, we're going to have to find this money.
Okay. Well, I haven't heard that yet. I'm sure he's talked to each of you, but I would suggest that we may need to go back and review what was done in 04-05. Because at that time, they were doing 90-10s. And it's unfair that we get hit today and we get faced with 50-50 with a new administration when they're sitting on millions and billions, and us not be treated the same way as other communities that got hit in the 04-05 storms.
Well, I guess that's the kind of stuff we should be lobbying about, talking about.
Correct. It's unfortunate that if that's their stance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else from Mr. Erickson?
Yes, not to confuse things, but in the past, and we haven't done it very lately, we talked about doing the collection of these bed taxes by ourselves here. We thought that there might be some financial gain to doing it ourselves, plus the state allows us to keep, an additional 3% for administration costs. Is that, I mean, I don't want to complicate things right today, but is that something that can happen over the next year or two?
I think, again, I would say that's a separate workshop item, but I think we're going to bring that to you over in the next year, maybe. We're looking at that, but the dunes and this issue is.
No,
is what we wanna get
that's
to.
what I said.
Yeah. But, yeah, we do pay the state 3% now, whether it costs us 3% or more or less. There's still a lot of issues to work out with the tax collector and how that exactly would work.
So that is an option still available to us then?
Yes, sir.
It is. In the financial handbook, if you look at page 243, it will show you all of the counties that do self-collect towards the bottom.
And about how many are there out of that, man?
There's 41, I believe, in the state.
So, in some counties don't even levy a tourism tax,
Yeah,
right?
41 out of, I believe there's 62 counties that levy the tourist development
So
tax.
62 out of 67 levy a tax, and then 42 out of those, what?
41.
41 out of 62, so it sounds like it's close to 66% or more probably self-collect. And I think that's something, obviously tax collectors across the state do this, it might be something we want to look into in the next year.
Is that it, Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead now and open this up for public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to make a statement, comment, or a question may do so at this time. We have a microphone right over here. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so. Seeing no one approach, we'll go ahead and close public comment out. Now, I've got here Tourist Development Council recommendation, but we're going to hold a discussion with just the Tourism Board at some point here, and this board will not be involved in that recommendation. So we'll dismiss this board at some point.
You can keep it in the same meeting. This item will actually come before you in March 6th at advertised in the form of an ordinance.
Okay. I'm going to give our board, the Board of County Commissioners, another bite at the apple here to make any comments. Then what I'm going to do to err on the side of caution is have one meeting continue the meeting with just this board so that the recommendation comes, with just the tourist board, so that the recommendation comes clean to the Board of County Commissioners. Al, you want to give me some counsel on that? That seems to be my impression.
Well, I'd suggest first that you take any public comments before you.
We just did that.
Oh, and that's all done?
Yes, yes.
Okay, nobody else, okay.
Okay.
Then you can just adjourn the county commission's meeting while the Tourist Development Council meets, but then, and you're the chair of that.
Right. So I stay here anyways.
And then the Tourist Development Council needs to ask for public comments. And then-
Again, okay.
And then upon the closing of their meeting, of that portion of the meeting, if you want to reconvene the board, you can just simply say, I'd like to reconvene the Board of County Commissioners. I don't know that you would want to react, I have no idea.
I
but you have
really
that
prefer
leeway.
not to have until it comes before us with
That's
the
fine, too.
recommendation. Once we dismiss the commission, I would just assume that we left it at that until it comes before them.
Okay, well, if that is the wish of the board, then you can just
that-
adjourn
I'd keep it clean.
the Board of County Commissioners,
Okay.
rather than recess.
Commissioners, if there's nothing more, the chair will entertain a motion for the commission portion of this meeting to be adjourned.
So move.
I'll second that.
There is a motion and a second. Okay, the county commission is adjourned. You're free to go. You can stay, go.
No other items?
No.
No, sir, not
Until we
to-
get to 5 o'clock.
That's correct, sir. And the other folks, I told you would be available, I don't think they're here yet, I don't think they'll be available till 3.
Well, that went a little quicker than I thought it was going to go. I thought we might discuss a little further, but. All right, now, just for the record, as we continue on the tourist development meeting, our meeting will be still, our staff will still record it. We'll still, when we do public comment, we'll still have the 3-minute on that, and we'll run, just like we run our normal meeting. Thank you, guys. I'll see you at 5. Okay, guys. Thank you, sir. Yep. All right, so we won't, we don't have to do any of the formalities. We're still in session. Any comments? Now, the ask from the staff, I'll let them finish their conference. The item before this council is, it's all yours, Mr. Dunn.
Sure, so we have, here, I'll flip back on the, Rose, would you mind if we put the PowerPoint back up, please? Thank you, ma'am. So we have the proposed 3-year plan before you, again, to phase this in, if you will, with an effort to front-load the beach restoration fund. So also want to just remind you that we could begin this as early as June 1st. So year one, we're proposing a 0-60-40 percentage breakdown between our 3 funds, assigning the specific pennies. And in year 2, switching to a 10-60-30 breakdown. And then in year 3 and beyond, moving forward with a 20-60-20 breakdown, assigning the pennies.
So, Matt, does this require a?
That's Tom Grimes, for the record. Yeah, state your name so that we, yeah.
Tom Grimes, does this require a motion from us?
It would.
Okay.
It would.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the proposed increase with year one for 2017 and 18 for capital projects being no change. For promotions, year one, a 60% change, and for year one for beach restoration, a 40% change. And then for fiscal.
You said no change. You mean on 109, 0, and then
Correct.
60 on promotion and 40, as submitted by staff?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
And for year two, for the Fund 109, that there'd be a 10% increase. For the 110 promotions, a 60% increase. And for the 111 beach restoration, a.
Yeah, please insert into the record that the word is allocation, not increase.
Okay,
Allocation,
allocation.
yes.
Okay. I stand corrected.
There you go.
And for year three, that the fiscal year 2019 and 20, that the allocation for capital projects, I'll get it right, is at 20%, and the 110 promotions at 60%, and for the 111 beach restoration for 20%, and that would also be the one that would carry forward from that point unless
Okay.
we change it.
And your motion also includes that this would be accomplished through the addition of the sixth penny.
Fifth for us, and that it take effect on June 1 of
Okay.
2017.
Does that complete your motion?
That does, sir.
Is there a second on the motion?
Pam Walker, second.
Pam has seconded the motion. Thank you, Pam. Any discussion on this motion to approve the proposal by staff as stated?
Linda Provencio, I just wanted some clarification on something. The Beach Restoration Fund, would the cities be limited into how many times they could come to that for money? And I guess the same for the capital projects, would we be changing?
I believe that the capital projects is going to be a discussion. I think
Right.
we have favorability to have another
Okay.
discussion on that. But the beach fund, I believe the beach fund is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do have an application process that's being updated right now for Fund 111. The total dollar amounts, I don't think that we have that set, so that's something that we can discuss down the road. But there needs to be some updating to our beach restoration grant program, and we'll be bringing
As well
you.
as the number of times that you can go back to it.
well, just remember, historically, the 111 fund was always in mind was the Army Corps project.
Right.
And
And
now we've
that's
got to.
changed,
That's
obviously.
changed, so
Yeah.
we're going to have to come back with some policy changes, and we'll just cover all of them.
So
So would that be
The-
decided before they vote on this extra penny?
No,
or
that'll
would that
come,
after?
this vote is before us now. Any policy changes will come at future meetings. policy changes aren't on the agenda, and we really couldn't make any at this point.
And I'll note that in my recollection, there has not been, in the Beach Restoration Fund grant program, a specific dollar amount like we have in capital projects for municipalities. So we do need to update that application to reflect these changes, but that's something that we can discuss in the future, and possibly even the March TDC meeting, about how we want to create and establish that program.
So can we ensure that that'll be on the agenda?
Sure.
We'll discuss policy at our next
I think
meeting.
that would
Yeah.
be
Does that help
very
you?
important for-
Yeah, and I understand your concern there. I mean, it's like Mayor Holland, is concerned that we stay on top of those sports projects, and that's important to us all, and the beaches. That's your sports
That's-
project.
that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
and we
okay.
get that. We get that. Yeah, there's a question. Yeah, he give me the hairy eye there, but there's a question. It's good, though. Matt, I want to tell you, I know you protect these funds, and it's your job, and I want to commend you for that. But the question is, would Flagler Beach be prohibited from, in our current policy, from getting capital funds for any sand or anything like that?
No, they're about at their 5-year mark
Yeah.
to start applying again to the capital projects fund. And historically, we've always done beach walkovers,
Pier,
bathrooms,
pier, yeah,
things
yeah.
like that, out of capital projects, not beach restoration. So we're in uncharted territory, if you will, when it comes to the beach restoration grant program. And that's something that we'll discuss in the near future. But I see you hesitating, and I don't want you to hesitate about the dollar amounts when it comes to beach restoration, because we've never had dollar amounts for beach restoration. So,
Yeah.
so let's not.
So it's something we're going to have to wade into, but we're certainly favorable to that. I'm watching everybody's heads bobbing up and down. This is good stuff. Like we said, historically, no one thought anything but Army Corps on that money.
And now we see how quickly that's
Now we-
changed, so.
The world has changed on us, and that's what storms do. So, yeah, we'll bring that up, and we'll discuss that at our next.
Yeah, because I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
go ahead.
that's my concern, is the fact
Melissa
in
Holland?
making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, which requires a supermajority to pass. So I'm a little disappointed I didn't hear more from your colleagues on what their stance is, just due to the fact that we're making a recommendation, and there was just very little dialogue that took place. So that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I'd hoped for something different as we sit here. It's interesting. So.
And you made a statement too, talking about that 50/50 match, which is a very difficult thing for, communities and the county to get together and figure out how we're going to do that. I'm a little concerned that so much energy in the legislature is being placed on something that's going to hurt us and not focused more on getting a 50/50 match. I mean, that's certainly a higher priority for this community, and to see that the energy's putting elsewhere, people got to do what they got to do. I understand that. But,
He made it
from-
very clear, there is no room to negotiate, there's no room to go back. It will be a
Yeah.
requirement of 50/50. And that
Yeah.
was my concern, because, again.
Well, that's easy when you're focused on something else and you don't want to put the energy
Sure.
into this. I get that, and I'm not condemning anything. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, from a community standpoint, as community leaders here, I'm hearing this message, no way, no way, but I'm hearing, corporate, the state, we're trying to get this thing, trying to put you guys out of business, and, I can't help, I'm sorry, I just can't help but think, wow, maybe if you'd put that energy into the 50/50, we'd have come out of this a little better.
No, I
Not
mean, and
beating
this-
him up, I'm just saying.
This was
it begs
unusual
that question.
circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not an everyday expenditure, but,
Yeah.
I mean, again, I can't stress enough, this is going to be a long-term
Absolutely.
solution, because, I mean, we're not Brevard County, we don't generate
We don't have the
millions of
economies of
dollars.
scale. We just don't. We're
Absolutely.
100,000 people, and, $1 million to 100,000, it takes, what, to get $500,000, it takes a penny in a room tax. So can you imagine if we had to raise, $1 million in a tax or whatever, these are just difficult things. And we know that in 2004 and 5, and I testified before a committee last week,
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, that we know about 2004 and 5, when those hurricanes came in, and there were some exceptions made. And that's what our representation should be fighting for. That's what I'm fighting for when I go to Tallahassee right now. If any of you end up there during the session, remind them 0405. These are things, if we have to fight this battle ourselves, we'll go do that. That's fine with me.
And I want to put a little perspective on this too. We can discuss the matches and how we're going to work to fix the beach. We can discuss the, food and beverage tax and additional state statutes that are specific to Flagler County in the future, but there's a process that we have to go through first. We're presenting you with a plan to move forward with that. So until we max out our tax, until we take the baby step approach to go through all of this, those items can't be on the table until we go through the proper steps.
To my point.
That's why we're here today.
I was just stating that it also needs to be a unified front when we're talking about these monies, because the more collaboration that takes place between certainly the people that are responsible for the beach, the better it is at the end of the day. And
Right.
so to have an effort that's going in different directions, these monies are going to be gone before we know it, and it'll make it very difficult to find sustainable solutions. And it will be a sustainable solution that we come up with, because we know that the beach is going to continue to be an issue for years and years to come if we don't do the right thing and maintain it and make sure we're
And also on
looking
the
at
beach,
that.
we do have that commitment from DOT still, don't we, Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can
I'm
tell
looking at
you
Mayor.
also that Representative Renner talked about that this morning as
Yeah.
well. I mean, that's the most frustrating part about this process, is hearing him talk about the regulatory agencies and such a disconnect between both of them. I mean, when you're talking about an Army Corps of Engineers that's going in a completely different discussion than our Florida Department of Transportation and those dollars,
But those-
that's maddening.
But if I remember right, Mayor Provencher, that those funds were going to happen year over year for maintenance of the dunes. That had nothing to do with the 30-something million dollars.
Hopefully.
Okay, so.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, so we're still allegedly then
Exactly.
at that
And we
money.
still haven't gotten a final answer there in Tallahassee, trying to get that money, and
So this,
still,
and-
nothing's done till it's done.
well,
so.
and to me, that's another important factor of why this penny in beefing up that fund is going to be so important. If you get that money, that's fine, we still have another 12 miles of beach. But if we don't, then we're going to be glad we did this to take care of the whole 18 miles of beach. So, over and over again, yeah, go ahead.
I would just say that I think this is a best plan forward. I think it's subject to change depending on what funding comes through and doesn't come through. And we may be back to make other adjustments, but the best look we can look in the crystal ball, we think this is the most reasonable approach, and then we can tweak it.
And let's be clear, this is not and of course, tax is tax, and we try to avoid taxing as much as we absolutely can. There's just no question in the minds. I know all these folks on this committee, I know our board, we're all kind of anti-tax people, but, taxes is how we pay for the things. And in this case, this is an opportunity to keep the beach open, to keep it happening, and to have those who are going to come in from out of state to use it pay for its usage. I mean, this is just the smartest way to do it. The users pay. I remember sitting with John Netz many times in meetings, and he likes the whole concept that you say all the time. The users ought to pay for what they're using, and in this case, this works out very nicely to allow for the tourists to come in. And I'd like to hear from the hoteliers on the impact that they think that this might make. Is someone going to walk in and say, there's an extra penny on my bill, I'm not staying here? If I can get any of you guys in the hotel business to speak to that. Tom, you're grinning ear to ear, you might as well jump right in there. If you think this is going to be a detriment, now is the time to share that with us.
When was the last time, Tom Grimes Hilton, when was the last time you ever checked the tax rate when you checked into a hotel?
I just figure they're taxing me, and I want to go to sleep. But, so you're saying that it's really not something that's...
Not for my particular kind of hotel, and that, most of the stays are 1 and 2 night kind, but perhaps my esteemed colleague from one of the big places might it might be part of the decision-making process for coming.
Stephen Baker, Hammock Beach Resort, but Commissioner, we check with our revenue guys, with the sales guys, and that's what I do. I book groups at the resort, and it's really wasn't impacted at all.
Okay.
They're going to be paying this at the places we're competing against. And so whether they're looking at the Amelia Island Ritz or Ponte Vedra Indian Club or the Naples Ritz, places we're trying to compete to get that group business from.
I think, Matt, what the places he just mentioned are already collecting this anyways, correct?
That's what he's saying. They're
Yeah.
maxed
Oh,
out
okay.
already.
Yeah,
They're-
so,
they're-
Commissioner,
They're already paying more
The way
than
we were
us.
looking at it and everything, with it going against that, it's fine. It wouldn't be like, hey, we're not going to come to you unless you can drop it down or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. Pamela Walker.
Pam Walker, Walker Enterprises. I'd just like to say in my business, I see sales taxes all across the board. New York City charges 15% plus a daily room fee. California charges more. They're competition for us in the long run, but the rate we're talking about is nothing, and I don't think nobody even blinks. They always just pay it because it's expected.
You think now you're in the travel business.
Yeah.
Now, I know when I travel, I set aside X amount of dollars for my trip, and I'm going to spend that money on my trip.
Right.
Is that pretty much the mentality of vacationers anyways? I mean, it's not.
It pretty much is. They
not
know
like,
that
well, I
there's
can
a
say,
tax.
yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a tax. Your airline tickets have probably a
Yep.
35% tax
Yeah.
on them.
I've
So
noticed
just so you
that.
know. So,
Yeah, that $300 ticket becomes $400 real quick
Yeah,
by
real
the
quick.
time you take
Yeah.
take clothes with you or anything. Take a kid with you.
Exactly. So I mean, I think it's minuscule what we're talking about. A 1% tax increase is not going to make a whole bunch of difference to anybody coming to Flagler County.
I just don't want to, the tax itself doesn't burden the Flagler County taxpayer, but I don't want to create a burden with the shop owner over here, Michelle Brown, by somebody saying, no, they're taxing everybody to death, we're staying away.
I don't think.
You don't see that happening?
I don't see that happening at all.
Ryan, did you want to
Yeah,
jump in?
I mean, I
Yeah.
just agree with my fellow,
It's Ryan Crabb.
Ryan Crabb, Hampton Inn, my fellow hoteliers. I mean, if I'm charging $99 a night, it's going to be like maybe a, 75-cent increase
Yeah.
per night, so, you know.
And if you think about personally, have you ever said, oh, I'm not going to go to the Keys this year because they're charging 6% down there, it's 5%, I'm just going to stay home because they only charge 5% where I live, and, you're
Well,
going to.
150 years ago, when I lived up north and I came to do the Disney vacation with my kids, we had to have 2 hotel rooms, and back then it was $250 a night, and I said, that includes everything, right? I didn't even ask how much of the tax was. That's everything, right? And, well, no, it's whatever it was. I don't remember what it beyond that, but, I guess, I mean, that's why I was looking at Pam, because you deal with the traveling
Right.
worldwide, and it's just, people understand, travelers understand, at least I understood, that I was paying for those amenities to be there, and somehow that's going to happen in this.
A lot of places, Pam Walker, a lot of places have not only the tax, they have an occupancy per person per night fee, plus they also have resort fees, which are charged over and above the hotel rooms. So I think this will be just absorbed and everybody will just go, fine.
Okay. Any further discussion from the panel? Okay, anyone from the public want to comment on this item to the tourist? You're talking to the Tourist Development Advisory Council. Go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Rick Bellimer, Commissioner of Flagler Beach. You spent some time in the hallways over there in Tallahassee with Larry, correct?
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you share with him this 90-10 thought of the 04-05 hurricanes so that our lobbyists can lean on people as
Yeah.
well?
We are actually, yes, sir. We are lobbying that. Our lobbyist and your lobbyist is aware, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that our guys were working on it too. Back to the capital projects fund. I know there's been a lot of talk over quite some time about maybe changing that, how that's all laid out. So I'm with Mayor Holland that we stay on top of that and restructure the allocation of money, funds from that particular fund. So That's it.
Thank you, thank you. You'll want to return when we have that discussion. Anyway, and with a cap, it helps. Anyone else wishing to address the advisory council? Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. There is a motion on the floor to approve the 1 cent with the graduated implementation. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? The vote is unanimous in the affirmative. Thank you all. Any further business to come before the panel at this time? Yeah, Mr. Dunn.
I also included at your place setting today our recent collections report.
Yes.
And you'll note that we did receive our December number, which is reflective of the November collection. And you will see a almost an $18,000 increase, which equates to an 18.45% increase over the December number of 2015. So knowing that this is the November collection, it's our December number, but it's reflective of the November collection, 1 month after the hurricane. This is really truly the value and the support that we saw from Visit Florida and all of the work that they did to help us recover as quickly as possible and truly let the world know that we were still open for business. So we hope we can continue this, although I do expect it to be pretty hard over the next few months for us to continue to see some pretty positive numbers. But we'll keep plugging ahead.
Well, if the Palm Coast keeps filling in those fields every month, we'll get that.
To that point, I mean, I know Representative Renner also updated on the whole Visit Florida thing this morning. That was the purpose of our meeting. He's still very steadfast on Enterprise Florida, but he has stated that we'll be hearing news that they are going to be having a different discussion about Visit Florida. So one that he thinks everyone will be open to.
And Matt, that number that you just gave was a number that Amy was referring to when she presented that she knew, but it wasn't released publicly, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And
So when they said the other month, they were referring to the wrong month, and that's what got broadcast, that it really was a dip, right?
That's true, and it was my fault that there was an error made there. I had a slip of my finger on the keyboard, and I gave her notes that said 16% increase, but it was actually an over 18% increase. So,
Great. Yes, Ms. Walker.
Pam Walker. I'd just like to make a comment that I hope that the commissioners that were here fully understand what it is that the tax percentage goes to help our community and help promote more people to come in. I just hope they understand the service that this board puts out. I'm not sure with the discussion whether they had any questions for us about what we do, but I hope that they do understand that Tourism Development Council is here to make Flagler and Palm Coast a better place.
Absolutely. And you know, staff and board, good things always coming out of tourist development. Like I said, it's one of the biggest economic drivers in this county, between, you know, our beach, our fairgrounds, our city with the soccer fields. What do they double as? Soccer, lacrosse, what else do they do on those fields?
we've had flag football, ultimate frisbee. We had our
Quidditch?
That was
I keep
there.
hearing Quidditch.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah, I always wanted to grab a broomstick between my legs and run around the field.
And I wanted to see that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would too.
Well, if you'll pay money to see it, I'll do it, and that'll help the fund a little bit. So, you know, whatever we can do for the community. Okay, we have voted on the motion. We're good. And the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you.